Hey guys, and welcome. This is the final video number 3 of my Grayscale to color series. If you haven't watched video 1 or video 2, I recommend you go watch that because that's how we got to this point here. First video is about gradient maps, second one is about coloring hair. So now on to the last one of this series, doing the color and all the effects. So let us begin by adding a background to this. Let's change the background to a dark blue. Now let's go up to the brushes and character brushes. There was a download link there for you to get. Hit the dirt brush, then hit F5, which brings up brush settings. Under shape dynamics, you click that. Under angle jitter, you go all the way to 100. That way the brush doesn't repeat the exact same part again over and over again. Create a new layer. Let's make this a dark green, dark dull green. You can see here it then becomes a little bit random. Let's make it a little bit brighter. This just serves to add some color, so it's not just a single color. All right, let's start a new layer and let's do all the effects. So once again, let's go to brush palette and under the Evenant concept art brush pack, smoke. You'll be noticing I use this brush heavily. And the purpose here is just to kind of make these lines here. You'll begin to see why shortly. Normally I do both on the same layer on the other side, but because the little trick I do, they're too close to each other here, so I can't. You get a smudge tool, and then you just begin to smudge. For all my Dragon Ball pieces, I use this constantly. Alright, so once you get it to look somewhat like that, you then go to Filter, Blur, Motion. And this is the direction it's going, so you just angle it to be in the direction that it is going. The distance determines the strength. 0 does nothing. So you could play around with these numbers. So let's create a new layer. Kind of repeat the same process. Get the smudge tool. Just keeping in mind, knowing what direction it is going. So you kind of just keep that same thing. It remembers the previous motion blur, so you just hit it again. Alright, so like I said, normally it's on the same, but because when using the motion blur, it's one direction, or use the radial blur, it can't do it this close to the other side. So you can either get this and flip it over or just redraw it. It's entirely up to you. The same thing over on this side. The reason why we use that smoke brush because it creates a sense of randomness. Create a new layer, kind of repeat it, smudge it again. It remembers the last motion blur. Alright, so when doing drawings, when you're making an effects or backgrounds, you have to always remember that it affects the actual subject, which is Goku. So if we're having these yellow, the Aurora, the power up, then it obviously has to affect him. So the way we do that, Alright, so let's select Goku. Once again, it's Command, you select the layer right here, because the hair we basically already drew it like it was affected, but we can still add a glow to it. So create a new layer, and this color is good enough for now. Let's go over here, soft round opacity brush. Wherever the highlights are at, you're going to be making it yellow. And the reason why this is done is because all of this power up, his aurora, is bouncing off of him. Like I said, you always have to keep in mind where the light source is at, because that is essentially what we're doing right here. This will be a two-step process. This is the main one. Alright, then with this layer, you go to soft light, and then you just reduce it down. Now we're just going to do it again. Same thing, let's create a new layer. With that same, just kind of increase it. The reason we're doing this in 2 is because it adds emphasis to the main one, but keep in mind it is affecting every part of him. The light essentially is touching essentially touching all the parts of his body. So we want to make sure that the yellow is affecting everything. But we want it to affect some places more, which is why we did that first one. Now this one, same thing. Do a little soft light, lower it down. So now it looks like he's within something. Now on to add some depth to this drawing. Let's create a new layer. Once again, use that smoke brush. We're using yellow still. And now we're going to make basically the powering up lines that are being in front of him to create that sense of depth. So kind of like how we did over here, we're going to be repeating that exact same process. When doing these, you want to make sure you kind of spread them out, but keep it in this direction. Then go here, blur, motion blur, adjust the angle. And you can see it underneath. Let's create a new layer and repeat it on this side. Remember to try to space them out. It's the same process over and over again, you'll notice. Filter, blur, motion, adjust the angle. Now let's just do the middle. The main reason why I do these in front is more so for that sense of depth. Because typically when you see Dragon Ball pieces, they always just have the power up and all that is behind them, when in reality, Goku is in the center of it. So we can adjust it, warp, use the warp tool. Essentially you Command T, hit that button right there, and you just kind of adjust it accordingly. Let's merge those together. So before, after. You see, it's a really small thing to do, but once you do it, it makes a pretty big effect. And this brings us to the end of this 3-part series of going from grayscale to color. I hope they were helpful. I hope you found something new to implement into your artwork. If you have any additional questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. If you like this video, why don't you give it a thumbs up? If you're new here, thank you for watching this video, and why don't you consider hitting that subscribe button so you never miss any new content, video, tutorials that I put out. And until the next video, guys, goodbye.